First and foremost, I want to thank you all for taking the time and watching my videos. In case you have just stumbled upon this video, this is the start of Michael Leonard Beyond the Veil, Episode 2. So if you haven't seen Episode 1, please, you need to go back and watch that one first, as each new installment will stem from the previous. As I had stated at the end of Episode 1, my parents had taken notice that my magical trip to Canada to meet a girl from the online world, that it was actually going to happen. Before getting into the trip, I want to address how I got into hacking. I had someone who was very close to me at the time. They were really good with computers, and what was so impressive about this person was that he taught himself everything he knew. His mind was like an absolute sponge when it came to computers. He absorbed everything, and so he started teaching me. I remember that we would test out different things on each other. After all, we had to make sure that what we were doing, that it actually worked. Between the both of us, we went through quite a few computers apiece. One of the very first things that I learned was to sniff out a person's IP address. I quickly learned that that number held so much importance. I started off very small, and I'll give you an example. There was a simple program that was called Bitch Slap, and what you would do is that you would put their IP into the program, hit the slap button, ultimately knocking them offline. I then started to learn coding. It was one thing to use someone's application, but to write your own program, and to see a bunch of letters and numbers come together, and to actually see it do what you had programmed it to see it come to life, it was truly amazing, and I got addicted to that very quickly. I then began to write programs and submit them online for people to download. One of my favorite things that I liked to do was this. I would pretend to send someone a photo of me. When it wasn't a photo at all, it was a Trojan, and it was disguised as a photo. After sending them the virus, I would wait for them to say, "The picture won't open." As soon as I heard them say that, I knew I was in. It was never designed to open. What happened was that when they clicked what they thought was a photo, it was a Trojan to gain access to their computer. I would then sniff out their IP address, and then I would use that to enter their computer, and then open what was called a keylogger. What a keylogger is that it's a little white box that would pop up, and in real time I would see everything they were typing. I would tell them that I would email the photo instead, and after it was sent, I would watch what they were typing. Let's say www.rocketmail.com, which is what Yahoo Mail used to be called. I would see the address typed in, then I would see them type in their password, and bingo. So now I can access their email, change the password while I'm in there, then head on over to Facebook, use their email, and at first I would try the same password on Facebook that they used for their email. If it didn't work, I'd go to forgot my password and then recover it by having it sent to their email. I would then own their Facebook account and their email address. It was as simple as that. Now let's say I wanted to really do damage to someone. Example, if someone had a boyfriend, I could go into his Facebook account and then start talking to his girlfriend's friends, pretending that I wanted to hook up with them, and then of course their girlfriends would report what the boyfriend had said to them. Do you see where I am going with this? To have this kind of power, it was addicting. It truly was. And to say that I only did good with my skills, well, that would be a lie. The truth is this, that I had developed an ego, and I would oftentimes brag about what I could do. I was in the high school library one day, and there was a bunch of students, each at a computer, and we were all in a chat room. I would use basic HTML coding, the horizontal roll coding, to be exact, and what this would do was that it would crash the chat room. Then to hear everyone's reactions, it was addicting. I truly felt like a god. Well, one day I got called up to the principal's office. He asked me what I was doing on such and such day, while in the school library. You see, I had got caught with my hand in the cookie jar, and was ultimately kicked out of school for a while as a result of what I had done. I was learning that there were consequences for hacking. Then, while still being kicked out of school, my mother yelled for me to come into the next room. When I did, I could tell that she was very upset with me. She told me that she had just gotten off the phone with our local internet provider, and that they had told her that someone using my name online, that I was knocking people offline, thus the bitch slap program. So my mom, She took away my computer, and then I was only able to reach my girlfriend by mailing letters to each other. That was rough, but at the same time I was actually proud of what I had done, and that I had gotten into trouble doing it. I'm going to step away from the hacking for a while, and we'll get back to it in later episodes, when I talk about my time with Anonymous. But now, I want to get into the road trip to Canada. I knew that we were in for a great adventure, but upon hearing the story, you're going to quickly realize that it was much more than great. It was about to get epic, like something straight out of a movie. I'll never forget waking up the morning that we were going to go. My friend Bob, he also was a part-time trucker, so he was used to long road trips, and I was very thankful for that. It was about 12 hours to get to her. She lived in the small town of Verona, about an hour north of Kingston in Ontario. I felt kind of bad, though, because out of all of us, Bob was the only one to have a license. So we packed the car up and told my girlfriend that we were on our way, and about when she could expect us. You see, back then we didn't have cell phones. Even MapQuest hadn't really taken shape just yet. So it was just us, road maps, and payphones along the way. It is truly stunning when you look back to the way the world used to be, and by how drastically different things are now. You're probably wondering where we were going to stay when we got there. Believe it or not, but we were going to stay for about a week, and we had told her parents that we would be sleeping in the car. Things seemed so much more different back then. I remember that when we were just about there, we were all extremely tired, and it was roughly 1 a.m. I'll never forget when we were about to pull into her driveway. I started to have an absolute panic attack. I couldn't believe it, the girl that I had been chatting with now, and for over a year, I was truly about to meet her. There was a mystique about meeting someone from the internet back then. It was almost as if I was about to meet a celebrity. I was nervous, and I mean very nervous. I remember pulling into her house when I saw her porch light come on, and then someone drew back the curtains. Everything went into hyperspeed by this time for me. I remember getting out of the car and seeing her walk outside, and then immediately into my arms. It was absolutely magical. So many thoughts, so many emotions, everything surging through my body as I hugged her. It was her and her mom that had stayed up to wait for us. Now, as much as I could go into extreme detail, I can't, or this video would be hours long. This video series is to allow all of you to get to know me for who I really am, what led me to be the man who I am today. I will sum up the Canadian road trip like this. It was perfect, it truly was. Everyone got along. Her parents ended up liking us so much that they insisted that we slept in their house, and we did. They were extremely nice people, in fact. Every person that I met in that country, they were all very nice. How many people can remember that date they started going out with their very first girlfriend or boyfriend? I can. I can also remember the exact date I lost my virginity. It was on that road trip, and with her. We were each other's first. I can also still remember her birthday. Our trip ended up being way longer than we had planned. One day, while out for a drive, Bob's car died. We couldn't believe it. I remember thinking to myself, this is fate, and it was. I know it was. What ended up happening was, my parents and sister drove a van up, got to meet her family, and stay over for the night. At that moment, I truly understood what love was, and it was absolutely amazing. But then came the day that we had to go. I have never felt so hurt, so empty. Jenny was bawling her eyes out, so I gave her another jersey of mine. The scene actually brought my mother to tears. She had never seen me, her son, interact with a girl this way before. Saying goodbye to her was one of the hardest things that I have ever gone through. We lived so far away from each other, but for the next 2.5 years we continued dating. There were several times that I took a bus up by myself and stayed a couple weeks at a time with her. One summer her parents drove her down and she stayed with me for the entire summer. Yes, Jenny was the first girl that I had ever been with and was my first true love. I don't regret sharing that moment with her, and her being my first. In fact, I feel grateful, but all good things come to an end. As you all are well aware, we had a long-distance relationship, and a very long one for that matter. We were not even in the same country. I started feeling as if something was off between her and I. So one night, me and the man who taught me all that I know, we hacked into her computer. It was a 12-hour hack. It took so long because she had multiple computers, and we had to be thorough. What we had to do in order to pull this off correctly, we had to violate her father's privacy and manipulate Jenny into doing a couple of things to make the hack possible. I felt terrible doing it, but I had to. And what I discovered absolutely shattered my heart. She had had sexual relations with a guy up there, and her dad was the one who dropped her off at his house. I felt absolutely betrayed. Jenny was not only the one who showed me what it was like to truly be in love with someone, but she was also the one that introduced me to heartache. Needless to say, I ended the relationship. I did try with her for a while to make it work. I was even considering moving there and becoming a resident. She said that's why she cheated. It was the distance. But once someone betrays you like that, you can never truly trust them again. So we ended things, or I was the one that ended them. I wonder now and then, would she have cheated on me if we had lived closer to one another? I'm not sure. But there is a very important thing that I must tell you now. We have to turn back the clock just a bit here. I explained to you all in the first episode that my dad was an abusive alcoholic. Well, after one of the craziest drunken rages from him, where he hit my mother, then slammed me up against the wall, he had his wake-up call. And for multiple years, my dad had quit drinking, and things were absolutely wonderful around the house. Well, one night I happened to walk by my mother, who was on her laptop. My presence startled her, and she immediately covered her computer screen. I asked if she was okay, and she replied that she was, but seemed nervous. I grew suspicious. What exactly was she hiding? This is when I carried out my first major computer hack, all alone. And what I found shocked me to the core. She was not only talking to a man from Puerto Rico, but he had actually flew into Ohio, and she had gone out on a date with him. My world was rocked. What should I do, I asked myself. What I decided to do, to this day I question myself. I confronted my mother one night while my dad was working. She was scared, and I basically belittled her and told her that I was ashamed of her. I said, "How could you do this to Dad? He has not drank in years." And get this all happened when Jenny had been dropped off for the summer. Ultimately, I didn't tell my dad, and one night, it was me, Jenny, and Bob. We had all just got back to my house from going out to the movies. There was a note on the kitchen table. It was from my mother and addressed to all of us. In that letter, she had explained that she wasn't happy and that she was leaving my dad, that she had moved in with her sister, and that she was ultimately moving to Puerto Rico to be with that man. My father fell to pieces when he came home from work. That night, I found him passed out drunk outside in his truck. He had relapsed, and later that same year, that is when I found out that Jenny had cheated on me. My father always held a grudge against me for not warning him about what she had done. But I didn't think she was leaving like that. For the love of God, the man lived all the way in Puerto Rico. I was just as shocked as he was when she left. That's going to do it for episode 2. We are now entering 1999, the year of my hockey tryout, and also the year that I realized that my dreams of both playing hockey professionally and marrying my first love was not going to happen. And that is the summer when I went absolutely wild and joined in on my father's drinking, something I swore that I would never do. In episode 3, I will explain how I confronted my father one night when it was me who came home drunk and angry. I will also talk about my ex-wife, how we met, and ultimately what happened. Also, my major medical conditions. What I went through medically is going to blow you away, and every bit of it is true. I think this series will end up being 4 parts long. Things are about to get wild in my life. So please, if you're interested in this series, make sure that you follow and subscribe for more. But that is all for now. I love you all. This is Michael Leonard signing off.